It can look like the rest of the world is sleeping and we're the only ones who are regulating.
If you don't even know what you're doing in terms of AI, it's not going to be possible to comply with any of the regulation.
Do we have a plan? It's not the question of do we have AI or not. Are we able to govern it? This is the major question.
Hi, and welcome to AI and the Executive Table, the podcast where AI meets near-world decisions. I am Kenza, the host of the podcast, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is really relevant to the Executive Table, namely regulation. My host today has a very special perspective on this topic, which very few people can offer. She advises regulators across different jurisdictions, including the UN. She is the chairwoman of the Regulatory Intelligence Committee and founder of the Institute of Legal Transformation. Dr. Abir Haddad, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Abir, one of your role descriptions is legal futurists. And this sounds like an astronaut. So
yes, right.
Please
I wanted to
explain what it means.
Yeah, I wanted to be a cool lawyer. So that's why I came up with the name Legal Futurist. No, let's be serious. Actually, being a I'm not a real futurist in that sense. So what I do is I focus on how society is changing and what is the role of law and governance in that intersection, which means how the legal and the regulatory sector is gonna evolve and change in the very near and midterm future. And for this, we develop concepts, workshops, regulatory approaches, and to help regulators on the one hand. On the other hand, also companies in the private sector to adapt to these, let's say, emerging technologies or changes.
Yeah. So I guess technology is one of the major impacts on how societies live today and will live in the future. And I guess everybody would like to know how the regulation is changing in the next years, but somehow regulation today is reactive. So does your work allow a prediction on regulatory landscapes, or how should we place it?
Yeah, this is really good, well described from you, because regulation and law is always reactive to what is happening. So we have, for example, the EU, the European Union, was the first one to enact a comprehensive AI regulation, AI EU Act. The other countries are more hesitant, so they're being actually more reactive, waiting. Therefore, I can't tell you exactly. I can't foresee where we're heading to in the next 2 to 3 years, but for sure, the governments we are working with, all of them want to either in a software or in a hard way, regulate artificial intelligence in some way. Again, it depends on whether a country wants to do it in the hard regulation, just like the EU AI Act, or in a soft law, just like guidelines, ethical guidelines, or ministerial guidelines, or executive guidelines. It depends from country to country, but it will be regulated. There's no free
no
free regulatory zone anymore. There won't be, and at least in the next 2 years. But in the same time, things can switch immediately. Economic powers are shifting. Therefore, also regulation can shift really immediately. But as far as I can see, no, all countries will regulate. Therefore, you are well off as an executive if you prepare yourself already.
That is, I'm surprised by your assumption that all countries will regulate sooner or later. because this is not the narrative that you hear outside of Europe, right? So you work with global regulators. What makes you think that most countries will adopt AI regulation?
It is, but because we get requested for that. It's actually
okay. So the market, just your market needs.
We're on it again. It's like I'm not an academic sitting back in my university, although I am also a university RD teacher at the university. So I'm an adjunct professor, but actually we get requests from several countries that there is a need for at least the need for them to assess the situation and then decide again whether a hard regulation, a law, or guidelines or any restriction in, for example, for youth or for the financial sector or for the self-driving cars, okay, including so AI. So there's no country I dealt with. There's like, no, we don't need that. It's just like we need to explore and then decide. At least from a European perspective, however, it can look like the rest of the world is sleeping and we're the only ones who are regulating because
this is the narrative we hear. Absolutely.
Yes, because exactly, again, we're Europeans. That's why we think everyone is sleeping and we're like, we're the fast ones. We are
the world champions in regulation.
Yes, we are actually. So. And however, the EU AI Act got adopted in a more lighter way from several different countries. For example, Kazakhstan. I worked also with the government of Kazakhstan. And it was even last year in May 2025 when they at least drafted AI regulation, also risk-based, just like the European Union. Less harsh. Less restrictions and less fines, but however also and less risk levels, only 3 risk level. But however, they kind of oriented themselves towards the European Union, but it's like as more hesitant steps. So again, the perception you have is a very European perception. Okay. Eurocentric. But this is always the problem when it comes to law and regulation, because we spread our legal theoretical thoughts around the world, and that's why we think that what we do is always, the right thing to do. However, I'm not saying it's wrong, but other countries are just using a different approach.
That would be my next question. What are different approaches that different countries are following? So the risk classification, that is the basis, let's say, of the EU AI Act. What other approaches exist?
Okay, so let's say if you look at it globally, there's 3 different schools of regulation or 3 different major approaches. You can choose between kind of as an emerging country. Which one should I choose? So one of them is the European Union approach, as the risk-based approach, hard regulation, comprehensive. Okay, very early adopter. So then you have the US, which is, unlike the European Union, protecting the rights of the people, data protection, very heavy data protection. Unlike the European Union, the focus more is on allowing innovation while kind of let's regulate when things go wrong. Therefore, it's like let innovate happen and let's find solutions later or patches later. They can do it differently because they have their jurisdiction or their executive power is quite different. As you just saw with Fable 5 from Anthropics, such a restriction is easy to do in the European Union. That's why we need to be more prepared than the approach in the US. So the US, they have more case-to-case regulation in different states rather than a US regulation. if you compare with the European Union, it's a completely the
It's
other
the
way.
opposite.
We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
country regulation. We have a
Yeah, yeah.
EU regulation. So it's a completely different approach, which can work, or we will see if it works well or not. The third approach, I would say, is the Chinese one. The Chinese are the sleeping tigers, let's say. They chose a completely different approach, which is very much deciding case by case and topic by topic. So the Chinese regulation goes more into, okay, regulating deepfake, regulating self-driving cars. And they created more, they going back, they moving away from our civil law approach, I would say, to a more case law approach. So what they did is establishing internet courts, which are only specialized in these cases. So you can have a court ruling within one day even. And
Wow.
these court cases on, again, deepfake, again, any AI applications are then the how do you say precedents? I don't know the word. Precedent.
So something needs to happen so that
It's
no.
it's the example, leading
yeah,
example.
yeah.
I don't know. The English word is so hard for me.
I don't know how it's called either, and it might be
Okay.
some technicism.
So these court rulings are the leading, they're setting the stage on how to move forward. So they decided to regulate less, but let the courts decide case by case, and from there building
regulation
kind
grows.
of from there building a case law.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a different regulatory
totally different approach. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
case law approach. At least this is what I sense from what I see, or from my work with my Chinese colleagues. So for one of the countries, when we did AI regulation project, work over 1 year now. We're entering the second year. We worked with different experts from different countries: Japan, Singapore, US, EU, and including China, and learning what the Chinese are doing and thinking, and how they approach law and regulations is really, really interesting, and it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah. I mean, I bet it is. There's a lot we can learn from China. I lived there for a while.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's especially when it comes to innovation and failure culture, which is really interesting, because they don't even call it failure. It's just you repeat until you get to your goal.
Oh, wow.
So basically, it's just part of the learning process.
Wow,
There is
it's a
no
chance.
failure. It's just an experiment.
Wow.
So that is really refreshing when it comes to innovation. Now let's get back to our topic. So if you are a CEO of a global enterprise, and you have to comply with different regulatory frameworks, how can you manage? Do you have maybe a life hack for us dealing with this complexity?
I would say focus on your strategy rather than the AI or the technology. And this is exactly what you do, right? You work with them on a strategy, and this strategy includes being prepared for regulatory changes, or entering even a new country where AI is regulated. So for this, if I would be a CEO, I would say know your data, know your governance structure. This is the most important, because if you know what is happening in your AI application into your enterprise, this is where you can tweak here and there if needed. If not needed, then at least you will be able to report, which is the least you will need to do. The worst which can happen to you stand in front of a black box and you can't justify any outputs from the AI. And this is not a compliance issue. This is a CEO level issue. You have to make this decision at the very, very beginning when implementing any artificial intelligence or agentic AI into your enterprise?
It's funny because this is actually part of the work I do with companies, is to execute on the strategy, let's say. So we do develop the AI governance, the AI operating model. And governance is a word that is usually very negatively connotated. So people think of, no, if we're talking governance, you're going to prohibit things. So nobody wants to deal with the governance. But I learned to love governance, even as an engineer and someone actually working to innovate, because it creates clarity. So when you shift your perspective on governance, you start embracing it. And from the work I do, I have seen companies that don't manage to evolve in AI adoption because nobody knows who does what, when, who approves what, with which budgets, and who takes the risks, how risks are defined. There is no risk taxonomy. There is no common understanding on risks. And once you try working on that and you create that clarity, people don't need to guess anymore. They know what to do and they know what to check, who to reach out to, and this is where speed comes from. So I understand that you have to focus on your business imperatives, on the governance. At the same time, I see the complexity when you are in different jurisdictions and you have different regulations. Sometimes some of them are even contradictory. And this makes your life a little bit hell because you can't comply with two things from two different jurisdictions at the same time. So that is something you need to balance. At the same time, I agree with you. If you don't even know what you're doing in terms of AI, it's not going to be possible to comply with any of the regulation. But still, somehow I'm just expecting you to give me a magic wand.
No, there is.
Say, okay, this is the systematic. If you follow it, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, the systematic, exactly what you're saying, just like know your governance structure, you know your data structure, and know how the output is generated. Like know how your data or the data of your clients is processed and how the output is generated. This is something you have also to be able to document, at least according to the EU AI Act. It goes back to the very core basic principles of everything when it comes to complying with regulation. Know what you're doing, document it, and be ready to present when needed. And then follow the very logic of whatever regulation is already there. So you have already the GDPR, which says do not misuse your client's data or sensitive data. So this is very basic. When AI comes on top of it, this doesn't change. Nothing changes that suddenly if you use artificial intelligence or agentic AI that now GDPR doesn't apply. No, it does.
It still applies,
Yeah. So this is, it's not, let's not overcomplicate it to calm everyone down. And then for the details, people like you take care.
Hopefully. I mean, I do see from what you described earlier that there is a common denominator, and that is the use case. Because even the EU, the risk-based assessment also focuses on the use of the tool. It's not regulating the technology, it's regulating the use of the technology. You said in China, it's case-by-case regulation. So that is, again, a focus on the use. And US is probably more fragmented, but even there, something needs to happen, and then it is regulated. So probably focusing on the use case and what you're using the technology for is already a good advice, I would say, looking into what is still to come. So future regulatory frameworks, maybe in other regions, that we're not aware of today?
Yes, probably. We are now starting to work with a completely new government, and I'm excited to see what is their decision to which direction they want to go, for example. And for me, it's really exciting to see regional differentiators. Economy plays a big role in whether a country regulates more strict or wants to allow more allows more innovation. So there's a lot of factors in place we don't see immediately. So this on the one hand. On the other hand, also the EU AI Act, even if we have the risk-based differentiator or regulation, still any model, let's stick to large language models, for example, you can use also for you can use it in a way that you enter a more higher risk level, just like you can use, if you use JetGPT for a cooking recipe, you're fine, right? If you use GPT, and I know it's getting more difficult right now, but you can hack it and then you can make it help you building a bomb, for example. Then it becomes also, the use of it more dangerous. And this is also a critique towards the EU AI Act, which was expressed by many scholars, that the use, if you stick to the risk-based approach, you lose the variety of the use case. However, it is also difficult in the EU AI Act to know even in which risk level you are.
Yeah.
This is so difficult, again, because
the interpretation is really tough.
On the one hand, and on the other hand, also the use case. It depends on how do you use it, or your employees, you can't control how they would use it, for example. So there's a lot of uncertainty also for companies in the adoption process. Okay, where am I? What do I need to be aware of? That's why I'm going to. There's no clear question for now. It's really difficult to navigate. That's why go back to the very basic, very logic. Does it feel right? And be prepared for that. First, document, know your data structure, and then go back to the very core regulation we have already.
Can we say that if you have clarity on your processes, on your governance, if there's an alignment on how risks are understood by everyone, measured, and the end-to-end life cycle of an AI use case is well defined, then you shouldn't worry too much about different regulatory landscapes. Did I make it too easy?
No, you didn't make it too easy. I think the hard part is to get exactly that, what you just said.
Yeah.
End to end. This is so hard. If you manage that, you're fine. Don't worry about the regulation. If you manage that, you did the line's job.
This is the promise I make to my clients, although lawyers say never promise, no guarantee.
No guarantees. But no, if you know what you're doing, so you can manage it. You can fill the loopholes wherever it can be critical. But if you do that with your expertise, because you know then the data, you know then the structure, you know which third vendors are using which data, right? And you know to select between which data to be processed from third vendors and which data has to be on-prem, right? So since you know that and you set the governance structure accordingly, no need to fear the EU AI Act then. It's just like more, I feel like it's a giant fear-based business which is created there, and it will be changed anyway. On the 16th of June, the EU Parliament voted upon amending the EU AI Act. So evolving in that process. So no need to fear. Use your basic logic. You'll be fine.
Okay, and make sure everybody's following the same logic in a big organization.
Yes.
That is actually the challenge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you figure this out, you're fine. But this is the main challenge I see. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So to maybe make it very concrete, if a CEO is listening today, what is the one thing they should do next week?
They should definitely ask, do we have an AI governance structure? Do we have a plan? It's not the question of do we have AI or not. Are we able to govern it? This is the major question you have to discuss in your board meeting.
Yeah, that is tough, but
yeah. Anything else is
I'm
easy.
just thinking how the reaction of the executive committee would be if a CEO asked this question, but that would be, I would like to sneak in and see it.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Thank you very much. It was refreshing. I am starting really to not only get familiar with regulatory landscapes, but to
like it.
To like them.
I love my job. I told you, legal futurist is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, and see you at the next executive table.